Hi, my name is Dr. Craig Bellamy. I work at Study Support here at Charles Sturt University Study Centre in Melbourne. And today I'm going to show you how to reference using APA style of referencing. So what we'll talk about briefly in about this 20-minute video is plagiarism, what it is and how we can avoid it. I'll talk about referencing, particular in relation to the APA style referencing. I'll talk about direct and indirect quotations and paraphrasing, and also author prominent versus information prominent ways to reference. And finally, I'll talk about the reference list. So just to start, I'll talk a little bit about plagiarism, what plagiarism is. So a student plagiarizes if he or she gives the impression that the ideas, words or works of another person are their own ideas. So most students try to be honest and acknowledge their sources, but often plagiarism is a result of careless note-taking and poor time management and planning skills. So it's always important to write down the source of your ideas, and when you're using them in your assignments or reports and essays, that you cite them correctly. So why do we reference? We reference to acknowledge the work of others and to give evidence that supports your statements or theories. So remember, in an assignment, you're trying to convince others that the particular argument in your assignment or the particular recommendations in your report are the best way forward. And often to make your work more authoritative, we need to reference the ideas of other people, other specialists in the field or other important people in the market. And referencing shows that you've researched. It shows that you've engaged with the material in your classes, that you've read your textbook, that you understand the material being presented in the lectures. And it allows the reader, such as myself, to locate the resources used. So maybe in one of your reports you've come across some really interesting data or a really interesting essay, and I'd like to read that as well. So if you cite it correctly, I shouldn't have any problem at all in finding it. And referencing illustrates a particular point as well. This is part of making sure that your work is authoritative and it is embedded within the conversation in the field. So when you reference, you are in fact joining a conversation of other people in that field. So what is APA referencing? So APA referencing is the style of referencing that's used here at CSU, and it stands for American Psychological Association. So APA is one of the major referencing systems used by academic institutions around the world. It's mostly used in social science and business, accounting sort of professions. And different universities use different systems. But here at CSU, you use APA style unless otherwise specified. So what needs to be referenced? Words quoted directly from another source, all ideas paraphrased from another source, distinctive words borrowed from another source, ideas or materials taken from the web, words, ideas or pictures from TV programs, letters, songs, computer programs, and advertisements, and ideas used from an interview. And the sort of the sort of things we can cite and use in our essays are quite limitless. But the trick is you use the most authoritative source that you can find, the source that helps you address the particular problem in your assignment. If you're citing someone, make sure you cite someone that you think is an authority in that particular area of, say, marketing or accounting. So you can use printed sources. These include books, parts of books, magazines, journal articles, newspaper articles, letters, public or private documents, poetry, scripts, chapters in a text. You can use electronic sources, web pages, articles from e-journals, newsgroup postings, graphics, email, messages, software and databases. But I would caution against using a lot of electronic sources, as electronic sources often aren't authoritative, meaning that they might be the words of people that don't actually know about the subject matter that they're discussing. You can cite images or graphs and charts, works of art, illustration, cartoons, tables, diagrams, models, etc. But when using these in your articles, always remember to cite the images and graphs as well. There's nothing wrong with using them, but just remember to cite them if they're not your original work. And you can also quote recorded or spoken material, and this may include lecture material, recorded lecture material, film, video, DVDs, TV, radio broadcasts, interviews, public speeches or conversations, etc. You may want to cite an interview with the Prime Minister that's quoting something that it has a direct impact upon your particular industry or your particular area of government. So getting down to the nuts and bolts of referencing. So what are the elements of referencing? So in-text citations, and APA is an in-text referencing system. Other systems use footnotes, but APA uses brackets within the text. That's the main feature of the referencing system, plus a reference list at the end of the work. So in-text citations, you can either have a direct quotation in the body of the assignment, and this might be something like Conti 2012 page 52. So that's how you cite something that's directly quoted. If something is paraphrased or summarized in the body of your assignment, you don't need the page number, so it would just be Conti 2012, like up here. And as mentioned before, part of the APA writing referencing system is you always have a reference list at the end of your assignment. And the rule is, so everything that you cite within your assignment, you need to have at the end as well. So if you're citing Conti as the example here, in your body, you make sure you have it at the reference list as well. And the reference list shouldn't have references in it that you didn't use within the body of the text. So paraphrasing and summarizing, very important part of academic work and a very important part of APA referencing. So paraphrasing is using the work of others, and it's keeping the same meaning but writing it in your own choice of words. Summarizing is a concise record of the main points of a text presented in your own words. Unlike paraphrasing, which is generally of a similar length to original text, the summary is much shorter. So an example of a paraphrase would be Stallings, 2007. Stallings is the author. Noted that managers must understand the technologies on the market. A summary example, Grant and Grant, 2008, studied the behavior of consumers of electric cars in the South Asian market. So a summary is recapitulating the key points or summarizing the key points of an author. Paraphrasing is taking the key ideas or key points of an author and putting them in your own words. And usually you put things in your own words to give it narrative flow, to give it part, to make sure that that it supports the argument of your particular work. In-text citations using direct quotes. So usually they use fewer than 40 words and incorporate the quote into the text and use double quotation marks. So, for example, it was found that using multiple communication channels is an effective way to communicate across cultures. So, you use direct quotations only when you're trying to stress a particular point. So again, you only directly quote someone if it's if that person is an authoritative person, if it supports your argument, if it's something quite unique and special that they said that you can't paraphrase, or it's not worth paraphrasing. Author versus information prominent in text citations. So again, Swales, that's the author, Swales 1990, shows how you can decide whether to focus on the source of an idea or on the idea itself in your writing. He provides two categories of referencing: author prominent, where the author's name appears in the sentence, and information prominent, where the author's name appears only in the parentheses, brackets. So I'll give you an example of this. Clays and Cobridge 2014 argue that, according to Clays and Cobridge 2014, accounting information systems are increasingly cloud-based. Example of an end of sentence citation, Clays and Clays 2014. So there's three positions that in-text citations can have. They can be at the beginning, the middle, or the end. So it basically it just depends on again on what you're trying to argue and the flow of your writing. Author prominent in text citations. Example, when paraphrased. Okay, Van Leer, 1996, explains that ethics is a framework to be considered when placed in a challenging situation and is not simply a choice between good and bad. So, in this sentence, this author-centered in-text citation, which is paraphrasing Van Leer, you're putting Van Leer as the prominent idea in the particular sentence. Now, if you was going to direct quote Van Leer, again in this author prominent in text way, Van Leer, 1996, explains that vocalization of words becomes unnecessary as a person matures. They think the words instead of pronouncing them, because verbalizing, page 5, can be embarrassing for adults when they make grammatical mistakes. Yeah, so this is a see where the pronouncing them because verbalizing. This is an example of a direct quote, and again, a lot of this technical aspects of APA referencing, it depends on what you're trying to say and what the particular mechanisms are of your argument, and how important this particular person, Van Leer, is to your argument. So on the other hand, information prominent in text citation, example when paraphrased, the data has been collected through questionnaires which have their own limitations. Furthermore, in some cultures, the context of the question asked is important as the content. Okay, so this is putting this idea forward, and then it's got the author at the end, which is Dwyer 2005, but the idea is more important than the author in this instance. Maybe that's suits your particular argument, because because you're trying to put this information forward more than you're trying to put Dwyer forward. And again, it depends on what you're trying to say and how you're trying to write your particular assignment. Information prominent in text citation, again, with a direct quote. The data has been collected through questionnaires which have their own limitations. Furthermore, in some cultures, the context of the question asked is important as the content. Right? So, down the bottom, you've got Dwyer 205 again, but you've got the page number. So, whenever you cite someone directly, you have to use the page number. And again, this is so we can find it easily. So if I wanted to use that quote in my own assignments, I would know exactly where to go to find that quote. Referencing multiple sources. Okay, so to reference multiple sources at once, arrange 2 or 3 years, 2 or few works by year of publication, i.e. Miller 1999, Shafraski and Mahoney 1998. So there's 2 authors here, or 2 works here, and this one has 2 authors and this one has 1 author. So give the author's surname once for each subsequent work. Give only the date. Okay, so in this instance, it'd be Miller 1999 and 2002, etc. So Miller here would be Miller's written 2 different works. Miller he's written one in 1999 and he's written one in 2002. In-text citations using multiple authors, 3 to 5 authors. Okay, so and it's not unusual in a lot of business reports or a lot of scientific reports, especially, to have many authors. So to cite 3 to 5 authors, you cite all the authors in the text the first time a reference occurs, and in subsequent citations, including only the name and the first author followed by et al. And et al. is Latin abbreviation which means and others. So the first reference in a text, Parker, Mokhesi, author C, author D, author E, 1998, right? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 authors that wrote this first reference in 1988. So if you want to cite that reference again, and you just go Parker et al. 1998. So Parker and others 1998. And it's not unusual in an essay or a report to cite the same author 4 or 5 different times, because you may be using different passages of their article, or even different articles that they've written at different times. So, end of text referencing, a reference list, very important. So a reference list includes books, journals, articles, or websites that you've cited in the text of your essay. So again, this is really important that you only include the references in your reference list that you've actually used throughout the body of your work. Okay, so the reference list should appear at the end of your work on a separate page. The reference list is arranged alphabetically by author. Where an item has no author, it is cited and listed by its title. Use double spacing between references and hanging format. And usually, if be skeptical of works that don't have an author, and unless it's something like a government report, which is often written under the auspices of the government and doesn't necessarily have an author, but most of the references you use should have authors. And here's the basic rules for end of text referencing. See how they're in alphabetical order. It's indented, and there's a lot of different styles of referencing here. So or different objects being referenced. First one is a book, Food Materials Science Principles and Practice. The second one is an article that's being referenced, and you notice it's got a DOI, and what a DOI is, it's a permanent URL. So a URL is like the link that a web page goes to. A DOI is a permanent reference. So this big number here, this is just like a web reference, except it's permanent. It won't change anytime in the future. It's used by libraries throughout the world. Here's just a normal URL. It's an article that's found on online, The Biology of Food, The Science Teacher, blah, blah, blah. And the last one is, again, a book. So, Dengate S, 2008, Fed Up, Understanding How Food Affects Your Child and How You Can, what You Can Do About North Sydney Australian Random House. So, that's pretty much it for me. Remember, if you go to iLearn on Interact 2, there's a lot of material on there about referencing, about making arguments in your essays, and lots of other material that will help you write really excellent essays. And also, something that will help you, I'm sure, there's a tool developed by CSU, a referencing tool, and I'll just briefly open it now. So this will show you how certain objects can be referenced. So if you go to a book, a single author book, and it'll show the in-text referencing, how to cite it when it's in your essay, particular in relation to a direct quotation. it'll show you how to use in-text referencing when paraphrased, and it will also show you how to include it in your reference list. Okay, we'll try another one. Try a government publication. So government publications often don't have authors. So we'll go to the government report. Right. And this is how you use it. Direct quotation, external reference group, 2004, page 33. That's when directly quoting it again. And when paraphrasing or summarizing it, this is how you use it. Okay, and this is how you would include it in your reference list. Okay, so thanks very much. If you need any more help, just look on iLearn or drop by and see us, and we're sure we can help you. Thank you very much.